Welcome to the Pontiac Fiero, a car that itself doesn't even know what it is. Okay, so we're gonna turn it on. And hopefully we don't catch on fire. All right, no power steering on this rainy day in a very dangerous car. Sounds good. What's up, you guys? David here once again for another car review. And today we're in a 1986 Pontiac Fiero, one of the most unbalanced cars ever created by General Motors. Please go. All right, and that's all she wrote. That was 50. This car came completely out of left field because if you look at all the other brands that GM had, a lot of times they parts bin everything to where they'll have the same parts in the Trans Am, same parts in the Camaro, same parts in the Corvette, and then out of nowhere, Pontiac was just like, let's just make a mid-engine sports car for the people, and we'll name it basically the poor man's Ferrari and market it that way. Well, it's definitely the poor man's Ferrari, but the poor man that lives on the corner in Times Square, because man, it is parts binned out in the interior as well. It definitely reminds me of the old Firebird and the old Trans Am. The gauges look kind of the same. The interior is very blocky, very 80s. When you sit in it though, it is a tight cockpit. I'm talking like almost borderline claustrophobic for some people. The first thing that you notice when you're in the Fiero is the suction noise coming from your left. It actually has a functional air duct going to the engine. This is a V6 that's in the back, and it makes basically 190 horsepower. Yeah, I totally said that wrong. It's actually 140 horsepower. So basically, your average commuter Honda Civic of today in this car that looks like a fast Corvette or something. So I floor it, and it goes. The car is very light, but it's also like flying a kite. When you're going in a straight line, you literally start to feel it kind of swaying back and forth a little bit. Oh yeah, by the way, it only has a 4-speed. I don't know what they were thinking. In the 80s, 4-speeds were finally starting to get phased out. Most cars had 5 speeds. Even the Japanese cars, sometimes the Mark III Supra and stuff, they had 5 speeds. And yet, GM, what were you doing? Get with the times in every way. This, like, okay, a lot of people hate the Fiero, and it's mostly because of the really bad reputation from the 4-cylinder version that had 90 horsepower, and that is because it literally caught on fire. And that's why when you hear the name Fiero, it kind of sounds like fire. Yeah, Fiero, fire, bad things happen. Don't buy a Fiero, people said. But the V6 model definitely didn't have as many problems, but Nick and his dad basically found this car in Florida. They were on their way to pick up a different car, and then they were like, okay, that car didn't work out, so let's just find this car on Craigslist, essentially. Went and looked at it, got it for $3,500, and ever since then, they've cleaned it up a lot. The interior is in really good shape. The paint is beautiful. They own a body shop, so that always helps. I've never seen a Fiero with nice paint on it, ever. So when I saw this in the parking lot, I literally couldn't believe my eyes. With the paint actually nice, it actually has a solid body line, almost like an SW20 MR2 combined with a Corvette, combined with a Firebird. It's just this weird problem child that you can't figure out exactly what it is, and I don't think it knows what it is either. But it's so funny because with the bad reputation of this car, even on the door panel it says, "But did you die?" every time you get out of it and open the door. It also has the tinted taillights because the original taillights are really ugly. They basically are just straight lines, but it's all smoked out now, so no problem there. It even says Pontiac when you hit the brakes. It also has a nice wing on it, nice matte color that looks pretty good, but it's just so tiny. Like everything in here, the visibility is not that great. I can see just fine. It's nothing like a supercar or anything, but when you first get in it, you look up, the roof is right there. You know, the sunroof is right at your head, and it's kind of hard to take in at first. The steering wheel screams 80s too. It's just a really simple 3-spoke with the badge in the middle. So I get on it, and it actually is quicker than I expected, believe it or not. Are you gonna be winning in drag racing? No, but it's definitely quicker than I thought. Brakes are decent, they're just stock brakes, and the suspension is also factory. So pretty much everything in this car is factory for the most part. Oh yeah, right after they bought this car, the clutch went out. So they had to put a new clutch in it as well, but they had to basically have it custom made because they don't even make parts for this car anymore. So like, we'll just kind of roll into it. We're going. Oh, I feel it. Oh God. So I hit a divot in the road and the entire car was like, I like this way. So it just started to go like this. I just did a roll on to third. I wasn't even going hard on it, but I could see how if you wanted to go very high speeds with this car, it would be scary. Also, when you turn in, you really feel just the entire back wanting to grip, but the front is just like, no, I like this way instead too. So when it comes to this as a story of the American car industry, this car just was rushed. They wanted to do something really cool, but in the end, they kind of half-assed it. And what they got was an unreliable, silly, hard to drive, understeering mess, but people still loved it because it looked cool. I mean, I'm still enjoying driving the car, don't get me wrong, but it's crazy to think that there's almost none left because for obvious reasons, but still, when you're cruising in fourth and you roll into it, nothing happens. Just, I'm all the way in it right now. And yeah, this is like D-Series Honda stuff right here. That was the entire speech I just told you, that was 8 miles an hour. I know it sounds like I'm really hating on the car, but it's just an interesting story, interesting legacy, and it's just, I give it credit for having the cojones of trying to fix this thing up, because who does that? I think it's really cool. When I got this email, I was just like, of course I'll drive a Fiero. I mean, I have to see what it's all about because nobody likes them, so I'm gonna see if I like it. The only place I ever see a Fiero on the road is really Detroit, because where these cars were made, a lot of people cherished it. But other than that, I never see these on the road. If you do, it's almost just like, can I have a moment of silence? I hope they're okay. Every other time, you never see them on the road. Especially the first generation MR2 has very similar body lines, and you really do feel the weight right behind you. There is nothing up front. So this car, when autocrossed or anything like that, has horrendous oversteer. And when you drag race it, it runs like a 16-second quarter mile. So tell me, if you saw this parked somewhere, would you expect this car to do a 16-second quarter mile? Here we go. I think one of the craziest stories I've heard so far about this car was that basically Nick was driving around and he heard the exhaust get really, really loud out of nowhere, and basically the bolts on the manifold, you know, the exhaust manifold had rusted and then they snapped, so all the studs snapped off. So instead of having, you know, like a baby exhaust leak or something where you blew a cat out or, you know, something like that, no, the entire exhaust manifold was basically open header. So that's another thing that you have to worry about. Also, the radiator is in the front. I know it looks like that it has a big trunk up front. No, it just holds basically your spare tire and the radiator and radiator fan, and then it runs all the way back to the motor. So essentially the body panels on the Fiero are plastic. You could literally take off the entire body and the frame is there, which is wild. So it's a little wet out too, so that doesn't help. Not a bad sound though. It's not terrible. It's got the quad exhaust out the back. Whoop, hit rev limiter. All right. Very linear power band, obviously. No turbos or anything like that, so it's very, very predictable when it comes to the engine. One over the hill. So, oh my God, there's a little bit of, excuse me, I can't even talk because I'm so focused, but there's a little bit of a dead zone in the steering. Not much though, but when you're going straight, you'll get a little bit of wobble. So you're kind of freaking out for a second, but it's still going straight. But you definitely get the move. Oh man. All right, oh, I hit a bump and did not like it. So the shifter, I actually have quite a bit of trouble with, since it is a 4-speed. Sometimes if you go over and do your first, that's actually going into reverse and you don't realize it. Also, when you try to correct that, it's easy to go into third when you think you're too far over, where first is here and third's over here. So I stalled twice thinking I was in first, but I was in third. Womp is starting to downpour. This is literally like the worst time in the world for me to review a car in the rain. But so a lot of people actually swap these, believe it or not. Some people have done the 4G63, some people have done LS's, some people have done the North Star V8 out of the Cadillac. You just don't really know. I think a lot of people went out there to try and improve the Fiero's legacy because of how it looks, and well, the original motors just weren't that fast. So people were like, it looks like a sports car, let me try and make it a sports car. But with the chassis and the reinforcement and everything like that, you know, it'd be tough to get this thing to be balanced with anything. But I couldn't imagine driving this thing with a high horsepower, like anything, high horsepower motor out of anything. That'd be really scary. There we go. I did the first to third thing again. Oops. So another thing is the pedals are in a really interesting spot. They're all the way to your right in the footwell, and they're all really close together. So if you were in a car, you know, you need to heel toe and stuff like that, it would be perfect. But kind of reminds me of the Viper. The new Viper, all the pedals are very close together to the point where I can literally feel my feet touching each other when I hit the gas and the brake. So pretty ridiculous. All right, you guys, thank you all so much for watching this quick little review video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I had a great time driving the Fiero, talking about the Fiero's story, and I hope you enjoyed it too. What do you guys think about the Pontiac Fiero? Can't wait to read these comments, and I'll see you guys next time, and take it easy. Don't forget to subscribe. Okay, bye.